will take place and people should get ready to present their positions. The tax bill is a law like every other law, and it has to go through the normal process. I gave my reasons why I'm in support, because right now taxes from Bayelsa are paid to Lagos State, and I don't want that to continue. When there is consumption of any good or services from any state, it should be calculated and paid to that state. I hope people have read it, okay? And that's why I'm in support. Oil workers are flown in from Lagos State to Bayelsa, to Delta, to Akwa Ibom, and they are returned. Then at the end of the month, their payee taxes are paid to Lagos State. That has to stop. I fought against that as governor. I took matters on VAT to Supreme Court. I was raising issues at the neck why that should stop. And now there's an opportunity to review the tax laws to correct the anomalies. Okay? And that's why I'm in support. I know there are states that are feeling that when they apply the new sharing formula, they will earn less. Okay? And it's for them to raise those issues and bring the statistics. I don't go by sentiments. I go by what is right and in the national interest. I don't go by sentiment. When everyone followed sentiment to support the former presidents Buhari and Emefiele, when they were doing Naira redesign, everybody was in support. I stood up against it. When everybody was following sentiment to oppose the increase of percentage in the PIA to the communities, I said 3% was not enough. I walked out. I'm a politician of conviction. Okay? Not sentiment. And I support and do things that are in the national interest.
To avoid uproar.
This country needs that tax review, and I don't want a situation where Lagos State and any other state that has an advantage will retain taxes that ought to go to the states where they originate from. And so I want it reviewed so that if you consume anything from Bayelsa, if you make MTN or Airtel calls, or if you buy Dangote or Bua cement, or if you drink Kai Kai in Bayelsa or Rivers or so, it should get to those states, not where the head office is located, which is Lagos.
So to avoid uproar during the public hearing, don't you think there should be more consultation before? Forget about uproar, there will be no uproar.
Public hearing is an opportunity for people to present their matters. And nobody is going to be intimidated by uproar or come and make your case.
But are you not worried?
The process of lawmaking will continue. Okay? The PIA was passed. We wanted 10% was what Yaradua proposed. They reduced it to 3%. Heaven did not fall. Heaven did not fall.
So are you not worried about the seeming gang up by the northern government?
I don't discuss regional issues. I'm a national politician. And my views are based on
Bayelsa West. The president arrives to lend my voice to the notion that these bills introduced by the executive as part of a comprehensive tax reform in our country be read a second time. In doing so, Mr. President, I remind us that by our rules, at this stage, we are to discuss the general principles and not specific details and provisions. And I rise to say that I agree in general the need for a comprehensive tax reform in our country. We don't have an economy that is taxation based and taxation driven. It's an economy that is sometimes difficult to track, sometimes difficult to predict, and that's not the best for us. In our system, if you look at the tax ratio, even in African countries, our tax reliance is just about 7% or even less, 7% of our population. compared to the GDP, the tax to GDP ratio, this country is one of the least. And that doesn't speak to progress, it speaks to stagnation and backwardness. Even the African ratio is 15% tax to GDP. And it's understandable because the founding fathers of this country based economies pre-independence on taxation, even taxing cattle. They call it the jangali in the north. And people were paying. They could plan the economies. And that was when they did major things in all regions. But all of that changed, Mr. President. The moment oil was discovered in the creeks of the Niger Delta, 1957-58, Nigeria found free money in the creeks of the Niger Delta, and we left taxation, just as we left agriculture and manufacturing. So that's where we are. So the attempt by the current administration to let the governments of Nigeria, all levels, they run on tax and tax revenue is something that I fully support. I am aware that some issues have been raised, and that is legitimate. We're a country of diverse people, diverse cultures, diverse expectations, and that's the beauty and the greatness of Nigeria. We cannot expect to be a country that speaks with one voice or sees things only from one perspective. All those are legitimate observations and fears and expectations. All we're expected to do is to harmonize all of this and enact laws in the national interest, which I believe, following our rules, after the second reading, at the committee stage, when the public hearing is held, everybody who has anything to say will be invited to say, as the chairman of the committee has said. Now, there are issues I am concerned with. Some of these issues that have been raised are also as a result of insufficient consensus building and consultation prior to the introduction. And it's understandable. As a former governor, while some governors express concern at the neck, that is legitimate. That consultation should have taken place. And I believe between now and at the end of our legislative activities, more consultations will happen. But that does not detract from the essence of the legislations that have been sent to us. For example, there is emphasis on derivation according to taxation. And the attempt now is to encourage states to be productive. And why not? A situation where states will abandon their core responsibility to create an enabling environment, attract investment, promote economic activities, so that that state can boost its revenues. That's a good thing, that's not a bad thing. I am concerned from where I come from the experiences you and I have, where oil workers are flown into oil platforms in Akwa Ibom, in Eket and Ibulon, in Akwa Ibom, or flown into Borno and other areas in River State, or flown into Brass in Bayelsa and in the southern Niger area, and in Delta State in Ogola and Foropa, Ogola and Fokadus. We are entrusted that this is an opportunity for the payee taxes from those oil workers to be calculated and paid to the oil producing states where those activities are generated, as against being calculated and paid to where the head office is located, as has been the case, where the tax is registered. And from the general principles underlying this bill, as explained yesterday, there is a move and a commitment by the executive to address that issue of revenue derivation, to ensure that paying taxes, even for the oil workers that are flown in and flown out every day after their work or 2 days, be calculated and paid. If that is done, I think that is a good move that should be supported. The other area in VAT, according to derivation, when we get to the committee stage, we'll look at the specific details. But there's nothing wrong in saying that the telephone calls that are made in Bayelsa or Akwa Ibom or Sokoto or Kano, the VAT on those things that are consumed, be calculated and paid to those states. And we are told that that is the essence of these bills, and there's nothing wrong about it. Because VAT is a consumption tax, it's not a production tax. Those who are in the states who consume services, the VAT accruing to those should be calculated and paid. I'm sure when we look at the details, we'll see whether there is enough mechanism to guarantee transparency and accuracy in terms of administration. Those are some of the things we'll fine-tune. So, Mr. President, this is a good move, and there is an effort also to reduce the burden of taxation on Nigerians. Corporate taxes by the proposal. If you read the bills, there's a proposal to reduce corporate taxes for next year, reducing it from the 30% that it is currently to 25%. So that is a good move. And there's also a move to remove the people at the lowest level in terms of their salaries and so on, to exempt them completely from taxation. These are good things in this bill that should be encouraged. Mr. President, it is for these and other reasons, and principally as a federalist, which I've been all my adult life, I see these bills as a move towards entrenching fiscal federalism in Nigeria, which I fully support. So, Mr. President, I use this opportunity to call on all my colleagues to agree that these bills, all 4 of them, should be passed for second reading to enable our committee and the experts and the general public engage in accordance with our rules. Thank you.
Lagos, no, please sit down. If you are traveling from Lagos to Akwa Ibom, all the local government people, the tax collectors will run from the bush and block your car. And then they will ask you whether you have tire permit, whether you have exhaust permit, and they will mention that this is Onyawe local government of Edo. As soon as you pass there, you get towards Onitsha, they will block you again. And that's for the same thing. And then you show them, they will say, no, that one you paid for Edo, we are talking about Anambra. You move from there, you get to Ihiala. They will say, stop. What of the one for Abia? So multiplicity. In fact, it frightens you to move on the road in Nigeria because of local government taxes. And if you don't have money in your pocket, your car will be kept there for at least 10 hours. So if the bills or any section will also address these issues of multiplicity of taxes, I think it's something that we should all look at. And I also want to remind us that we are discussing the general principles of the bills. The specifics will be looked into whenever we go for the public hearing. We'll get the experts, we'll get the traditional institution, we'll get our governors and all other stakeholders concerned to make their input. We will not pass anything here that will not be in the best interest of Nigerians. We believe strongly that what is good for Nigeria is what we will to do. And we should at this stage even say, let's go for the second reading so that we can subject it to legislative processes. Who do I call so that I won't put any question until I hear from Senator Ndume.
First, reforms is necessary if we have to move forward. Even in our lives, you look at where you are, where you want to be, and how you want to be, so that you get there. I am not against reforms, and I'm not against these reforms, tax reforms. My problem is, number one, the timing. The timing as it is today, when you talk about reforms to Nigerians, whether it's good or bad, they misconceive it. And as we said, I just want to add to what distinguished Senator Sareki Dipo said, Senator Dickson said. He talked eloquently and explained so many things. There are 4 things or 3 there. But as you said, the time for that would be at the public hearing or when we pass it to the second reading. But let it be on record that my problem with the bills, I've said 1, that is the timing. Number 2, the issue of derivation made the reform contagious, contaminated, and contradictory in some cases, because the Constitution has to be amended in order for some of these proposals to be effective. I'm glad we are doing constitutional review. So even if it means reviewing the Constitution, this is general principle. As you said, or as the senators decided, we should not throw away the baby with the bathwater. I would have preferred we remove the baby and throw away the water first. And that is to go with what the governors and NEC proposed, that this bill should be withdrawn so that, and they are not saying that the bill should be killed. No. You withdraw the bill, work on it, and then submit it to the National Assembly again after getting the buy-in of the governors and NEC and even our traditional rulers. Mr. President, let's be honest to ourselves. If we sit down here, work on these bills, assuming as it is now, because the governors have not come out publicly to change their position. The traditional rulers have not sat down publicly to change their position. NEC have not sat down to change their position. And for me, as I said, I looked at the bill. The bill contains so many good things, but these 2 things, derivation and VAT, even though you say it will be addressed at the public session, it's not something that many of us will agree to it. You started by saying we are going to negotiate, which is good, and it's coming from you. But why don't we negotiate first before we come out to take a position? The tax, something that looks attractive, may not necessarily be that. Because if you transfer or you move people from lower income from VAT, and then you increase their taxes, the corporate taxes, the person that is manufacturing that goods will now transfer the VAT cost to it. So it means you gave him with the right hand and it was taken, or is taken from the left hand. Secondly, the corporate tax you are talking about, when you remove the lower income, which is good, but then in the bill they say 50 million to billion, 25%. They reduce it from 30% to 25%. If a small person or medium enterprising company makes up to 50 million per year, and you are charging him the same percentage with companies that are earning billions and declaring billions of profit. I give you an example back. So, the person that is in Navy managing to manufacture shoes and his turnover turns up to be 50 million, you are charging him the same with somebody that is sitting down with pen and paper. Read it, and you see.
Senator Ndube, you have 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds to conclude.
I don't know whether that is fair, Mr. President.
On the general principles of the bills. You have 30 seconds.
So, in conclusion, Mr. President, the third problem I mentioned, if the people, through the governors, and then the NEC and the traditional rulers say that the bill should be withdrawn, make some necessary amendments, and then bring it